So hopefully anyone that's going to install this particular Rubicon Express transmission skid plate, hopefully this video helps you out, because I really couldn't find any. Hopefully the background noise is not too much. It's hot here today and I got the fans going, so I'm in the garage and it's hot, so hopefully the background noise isn't too bad. So with that said, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So I'm under the Jeep here, and try and back this out a little bit. So here's the transmission, and first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna get these bolts loose and then go to the back side of the transmission, and I'm gonna see if I can do it without removing the cross member. The instructions say you have to, but we'll see. We'll see what we can do with this. And I think the bolts that we need to get to are like right here, but again, we'll see if we can do this without dropping the transmission cross member. If it works, great. If not, we'll just have to drop it. But when we get to that, we'll figure that out. But where I'm going to start right here is knocking those two transmission bell housing bolts out, and it's two bottom ones. And the first bracket, once you get the bolts off, it just goes like so. All right, so these bolts are 15mm, and I guess we'll see how actually that one came out pretty easily. I don't even have a breaker bar on this. They're coming right out. So I'm threading them, by hand first. The last thing you want to do is strip this. So get them started by hand, and then you can use either the ratchet or and I'm just getting them snug for right now. So that's it for the first one. That went on pretty easy. Now for the back, I think that's going to be the harder part. Alright, so at this point I'm trying to get these back bolts out, and you can see it right there. There's one bolt there. So if you take a long extension for the socket, and this is 16mm, and put the socket through, like the extension for the socket through the hole, and then put the socket on after it's through, because the socket is just too big, it won't fit. And then at that point you can get at that bolt and work it loose, and it's coming out. So again, what we're trying to do here is install this skid plate without having to remove the transmission cross member, because that's going to add probably at least a good 45 minutes to an hour to the job. So we're trying to cut that corner out, see if this will work, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to back that bolt out, and I'm going to do the same thing. There's a bolt right there. I don't know how well, hopefully you can see it in the video, but it's right there. So the driver's side, you can actually put the socket on and it goes right through, which is good. So the engineers, when they were putting this thing together, they thought ahead, and you have a big enough hole to actually get the socket through. And this is on the driver's side. The passenger side, you're going to have to feed just the extension through first, and then, but you have enough room to get your hand in there and put the socket on. So passenger side, you know, you have to feed the extension through first, then put the socket on. Driver's side, you can, you know, just go ahead and the hole's big enough where you can put it right on the bolt. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna back that bolt out. All right, so at this point what I did was I slid the bracket in from the passenger side, and I want to take a picture. What I did was I actually drilled that hole out on the passenger side of the in the cross member, because I mean, I don't know why they designed it the way they did. That hole is just too small. I mean, you know, they have it opened up on this side where you can get the socket and everything through, and on this side it's not. So I just drilled it out. It made it a lot easier, and you do not have to pull this cross member for this, but you probably will have to drill out this hole. You know, all you're doing is making it a little bit bigger, but you know, again, it's fine. It's not going to hurt anything, and if you ever need to pull the skid plate, you know, you don't have to pull the transmission cross member again. You know, you can, at that point you have the hole in there, and you know, you can take it off if you need to, you know, to service the transmission. Eventually you're going to have to, you know, do transmission fluid on your Jeep. I don't have to do it yet. My Jeep only has 46,000 miles on it, but you know, at some point I'm going to need to do a transmission fluid change in the filter. So you know, this will make it a lot easier to pull the skid plate off when that time comes. And as you can see, I just, you know, opened up that hole. I just drilled it out. Just, you know, regular drill will do it. All right, so we're having a fitment issue. The skid plate is not clearing the exhaust. So what I have to do is I'm going to have to loosen these exhaust flange bolts and see if I can get it on there, and you know, hopefully it'll seal. I'm hoping it's not going to, you know, the exhaust isn't going to hit the skid plate, because then it's going to rattle. So what we're going to do now is loosen these bolts, get this exhaust, you know, down a little bit, and get the skid plate on, and you know, at that point I'll be back and we'll see how everything fits. So I'm not going to record this part. All I'm doing is just getting the bolts loose on the exhaust flange on the passenger side, and that'll allow the exhaust to droop a little bit. All right, so at this point I have the exhaust flange loose, and I also loosened up the flange, or the U-bolt here for the exhaust. Now I have the Rancho exhaust crossover kit, and what that does is that drops this pipe lower to clear the drive shaft. So but this part right here is still, you know, stock. So you know, you're still going to have the same issue here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this thing bolted up. All right, so when you put the skid plate on, the Rubicon Express lettering goes towards the front. All right, so the flared black bolts go to the front, and the gold colored bolts are for the back. All right, so at this point we have the bolts on, you know, on the front. We have the front bracket on. There's the bolts for the back. You can see it there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and snug everything up, and then we'll get back to the exhaust. I do want to mention the 2 back bolts for the bracket. Don't over tighten those. They're only meant to tighten down to 20 foot-pounds. So make sure you have a torque wrench. You know, I have one, and I'm the back 2 bolts for the bracket, I'm torquing down to 20 foot-pounds. I just wanted to mention that because you want to make sure you follow the manufacturer's torque specs for the back bracket. The front bracket, it's just the bell housing for the, you know, transmission. Just make it, you know, don't over tighten it. You know, if you want to be picky about it, you know, tighten those down to 20 foot-pounds. Otherwise, just, you know, do it by hand and you know, make them tight. But again, don't over crank it. You do not want to strip those threads. All right, so I think I'm done fiddling with the exhaust. What I had to do was I had to loosen the exhaust flange on the passenger side. What I did was I took a wrench and I stuck it in here while I was tightening everything down, just to help kind of line everything up. And my clamp there, I loosened up and then, you know, retightened it. And I didn't actually even have to mess with that. But what I did was I purchased another flat exhaust clamp like this one. I had to order it from O'Reilly's, so you can either get them online or at O'Reilly's. And what I'm going to do is once it's in, I'm going to, you know, put it on here. The round, you know, regular exhaust clamps, they're not going to work. There's just not enough space. But you know, here's a shot of it. I can almost get my finger in there. I can't quite get my pinky, but you know, there's quite a bit more space there. And what I did was to help just kind of line everything up while I was tightening it down, I took a wrench and you know, an open-end wrench, and put it in there. I tightened the clamps down and then, you know, pulled out the wrench, and there was, you know, enough space here to get the band clamp in, or the flat exhaust clamp. And once that's in, it's just going to go right here. So at this point, we're done. Okay, so this is the front of the trans skid plate, and it's pretty sturdy. It's pretty good. And it goes through there, and you can see where it bolts, and there's the back side of it. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it because of the cross member brace and everything is in there. And I'm just going to take some paint and touch up the hole that I, you know, opened up for this, and that worked out, you know, pretty well. And again, I know the instructions say to drop the trans cross member. I did not have to do that, so I wouldn't mess with it. I would just open up this bolt right here, or the bolt hole, like I did. Hit it with some touch-up paint. It's not going to hurt anything to open it up. You know, and then when it comes time to do a transmission fluid change, it's just going to be a lot easier to get the skid plate off to replace the trans fluid filter. So this worked out pretty well. I'm waiting for the oil pan skid to come in. That's not in yet. It's on back order, but when that comes in, we'll do another video. But yeah, so this is it. At this point, you know, we're wrapped up. I'm pretty happy with it so far. It's sturdy. You know, it's I think it's 1/4 inch plate. It's either 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch. I'd have to double check. But yeah, so it turned out well. I think that wraps up the video.